Hey everyone, it's Dominic from the Primetime Treasure eBay store and YouTube channel. Welcome back to another video, and welcome to all of the new subscribers who literally poured in today after hearing my podcast interview with Ron and Ali from the So You Want to Sell on eBay show. That was a really fun interview, a very lighthearted, just kind of interaction back and forth about my business, my day-to-day operations, how I got started, and all sorts of other things related to reselling. So if you didn't get a chance to hear that, it's about a half an hour long. I'm going to link to it down below in the description section, so make sure you go check it out. It was a fun time. I think you'll enjoy it. And thanks to all of you who took the time to drop a note to let me know you heard that interview and that you liked it. But I'm going to jump into the topic of today's video here, which, as you can see, has to do with myth busting. And this is actually on one of my favorite topics. If you're new to my channel, I do a lot of, or I have done a lot of videos that have to do with negotiations and the interactions between buyers and sellers, and looking into the psychology of that, and using my background as a psychologist and integrating that with business principles of supply and demand to find the ways to maximize your profits and run a successful business. Because after all, that's the only way you are going to grow, is if you do maximize your profits and you continue to bring in a good return on your investment. And that has to also relate to making sure you're being well compensated for the time you are investing into your business. Because remember, when you have an item that's listed up for sale, there's a lot of things that went into that, and time is money. So you went out and you researched where you were going to go maybe that day, or even if you didn't do that, you still drove somewhere to source the item. You took time to source the item. You checked comps. You brought the item back home. You processed it. You maybe did some cleaning to it to make it more presentable. You took photos. You maybe had to retake photos. You had to write up a description. You had to check comps again when you got back, just to see exactly where you should price it properly. All of those things take time. And so and remember, you're also going to pack it and you're going to ship it. So there is nothing wrong at all with making sure you hold firm on being compensated for your time. And if you feel that you are being lowballed, and that the offers that are coming in are just outright ridiculous, you absolutely are under no compunction to send back a counteroffer. And that's the myth that I want to get into here, because there are some people who do subscribe to the belief that every single offer that comes in is something that you should counteroffer. And I totally disagree with that, because as in most things in life, it's really rare that there's a black and white response to to that situation in every instance. There is black and white in the world, but there's also a lot more gray. And so you need to have exceptions carved out in terms of when you're going to go in and you're going to use a different approach. I'm not saying not to counteroffer. In fact, whenever I could counteroffer and whenever it makes sense to do so, I do. I do a lot of counteroffering, and I make a lot of business and a lot of deals by using the counteroffer. But as I said, there's exceptions, and there's certain situations where I would advise not doing that. And I'm bringing this up because I think that a main reason why a lot of people wind up quitting eBay is because they feel they're not getting back what they're putting into it. And that's because in a lot of instances, they're making bad deals for themselves. So let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you a situation in which I made a deal through a counter offer, and then on a similar item in which I made a deal after not counter offering. And let me show you exactly how both of these situations played out. So let's go over here, and right here what you see, this is an original sketch by Al Rio of a fairy. Now, some people might call her a cute fairy. Some people might call her a sexy fairy. Fairy art is popular. Now, the artist isn't so important here. The artist in this instance is, as I said, Al Rio. He is deceased, so his art is somewhat sought after, but it's really more the content in this area of this being fairy art. That magical kind of enchanted type of art. There's a lot of people looking for that, so as long as the art looks really nice, people will go for it really regardless of who the artist is. So again, this is an original sketch. It's 12 by 8, and I did some comp research, and of course you're not going to find this exact same item because it's a unique one-of-a-kind piece. So I had to just basically do some research into comps on this type of art and try to come up with what's a reasonable price, like a maximal price that I could get for this. Since it is unique, I could go higher on the price since no one else is going to have one. So what I did was I priced it at $49.99, and that's with free shipping. So as you'll see here, an offer came in for $35. So that's a $15 difference. So what I did in this instance, since I felt like that was close enough to where I was, I made a counter offer at $42.50, and there you go. Now this says sold for $49.99, but it doesn't account for that I accepted a best offer. And so I accepted the best offer. I really sold it for $42.50. There we go. Quick, easy deal, gone. Okay? That's an example of where you would successfully use the counteroffer. But now, let me show you an example in which I did the opposite approach and still wound up making a really great deal for myself. This actually happened literally over the course of the last few days. Actually, yesterday and tonight is when I finally made the sale. So now this, by the way, if you belong to my Facebook group, the Facebook Reselling Resource Center, which if you're not a member of that, you definitely should join it because I do a be on the lookout item every day. And one of the items I put up recently was fairy art. If you're wondering how I got all this was through a big purchase of comic art. This is just a very small amount of it. I mean, it's absolutely a huge purchase of it that I made, and I got it for a pretty low price. And you know, I'm just starting to list a lot of this stuff and start selling it. So but fairy art's real popular. This one is more intricate than the other one that I showed you. It's also bigger. It's 11 by 17. It's not by a famous artist at all. So whereas Al Rio over here, he is famous, this artist was not famous. It was Dean Juliet. But the art on it is really exquisite. And so because it looks really nice, it's Halloween themed, and we're right around Halloween time. It's got the witch hat. You know, it's definitely, you know, a more revealing photo. There's no nudity in it, but it's definitely more revealing. There's a lot of things about it that make it more appealing. So I priced it $10 higher than the other one. I priced it at $59.99. Now remember, as I'm going into this, I have knowledge. I have knowledge on comp research, and I also have knowledge of what a similar item sold for that was smaller. This one here selling for $42.50. And by the way, I had a bunch of watchers on it at the $49.99 mark. So I knew people were interested in it. So what happens yesterday, as you can see here, someone sends me in an offer of $19.99. Now, think about this for a second. That $19.99 is less than half of what I sold the smaller item for. Okay, $19.99 is a third of what I have this current item up right here. Okay, there is no way I am letting it go for anything even close to $19.99. And unless the person is going to come in with an offer that's somewhat close to where I am not going to waste my time counter offering, because they are not going to come up to where I want it to be. I want this item to sell for $50 to $59.99. I have the $59.99 there. I'm willing to negotiate somewhat, but I'm not going to go below $50 on it. This person is not going to go up from $19.99 to $50. Okay, So now, of course, yes, can there be some exception where there's one person out there that does it? Yes, but in the vast majority of times, that is not what's going to happen. So what happens next? So what do? I just decline it. I don't say anything. I literally just hit the decline button and I just move on. I consider this just part. I don't get. I try not to get mad at it. I just consider this part of doing business on eBay. Is there's going to be people who try to take advantage of you and just try to test you and see if you're even willing to submit that counteroffer. Okay, so I don't send it. So what happens? Shortly thereafter, the person inches up by $5. So this is the person sending out another test. They're not willing to go up much. They're willing to put it up just a tiny bit and to see if you're going to accept it. This is what I've called in my other video the double low ball. Now remember, I operationally defined a low ball for you because a lot of times people use that term loosely, that you were lowballed. Well, how do you actually define that? I define being lowballed as that someone has sent you an offer that's 50% or less of what would reasonably be considered market value for the item. And if that prior item that I just showed you sold for $42.50, there is absolutely no reason in the world that this item should not have a value between $50 and $60. So what happens? I hit decline. I don't say anything. I literally just decline it. So now the person has a final offer to send in. And what do? They do the triple low ball. Okay? So still at half, 50% of where I'm at. So that's what the person decided to do with their last offer. Now, here's the funny thing about this. The person on the other side does not have an adequate understanding of supply and demand or of leverage in negotiations and making offers. Okay? Remember, I am literally the only person who has this. Okay? No one else does. It's a unique piece. I have it, and I know at the time that I have it listed that I have 9 watchers on it. Now, for people who say watchers don't matter, again, that is not completely true. When you have 9 watchers on an item, that is an indicator of strong interest, period. That's at a minimum, that's what it is. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to sell, so that's true, but it is an indicator of very strong interest in your item. So, the part about supply and demand is, again, this is an item that is high in demand. It's low in supply. No one else has it. I'm the one with the leverage in terms of this whole situation, in terms of doing any kind of negotiation. So there's no damage to it. As you can see, it's sealed. So an offer that comes in needs to be a respectful one. If it's not, I am under no pressure to sell this item right now. I'm not worried when a final offer comes in at $29.99 as if I'm not going to be able to sell it again. I'm more than happy to have this person move on and sell it to the next person who comes in. And look exactly what happened tonight. Someone came in and sent me an offer for $45. So once again, just like with the other item, now this is a different potential buyer. $45, so they're $15 away, close enough for me to make my counteroffer to get me over that $50 price range. So now I submit a counteroffer for $52.50, and as you can see here, my item sold tonight for $52.50. Okay, there you go. Now, in terms of the argument that, well, I lost this customer here, I potentially lost a deal. Well, what if I would have counteroffered? Let's say I got nervous here at $30 and I counteroffered halfway, and I counteroffered at $42.50 or $44.99. Let's say I went halfway, so 30 to 60, $15. I went $44.99, and the person accepted it. Yes, I made a deal with that person, but I actually, if I would have just held on, I would have made $7.50 more when I sold it for $52.50. Okay? Now, in terms of, well, the argument that you just turned this customer away. That's right, I did turn the customer away. And I have experience in the past, because I've been doing eBay since 2000. Now, back then, they didn't even have the best offer thing, but when the best offer came out, I used to try that, to do the counter offer to all the offers that came in. And what eventually happens is that the same type of buyer, not always, but in some instances, will keep coming back to other items that you have and just continually wasting your time by sending in counter offers. So I like to let the person know, by just declining like this, that that's not going to be how I do business. And so this person now knows that continuing to send in lowball offers is not going to be the way that I'm going to do business. Now, that person may go to some other person and give them their business by sending in lowball offers that are then accepted, but that's fine with me. Go to somebody else and, you know, purchase things from them that who you're lowballing, but not from my business. Okay? I want to deal with buyers who respect the market value of the items and will be willing to make a fair deal. That's what I'm looking for. Those are the types of buyers that I'm looking for. You know, with any type of business that's out there, don't think that in other businesses that there are not businesses that don't turn away certain types of customers. There are people who, their businesses do that all the time. If it's a customer, for example, who's making excessive returns or is bringing in a faulty check, and they get on a list, do not sell to this customer. So, of course, those are people who are, for example, breaking rules or maybe taking advantage of certain situations. But in this instance, these extreme lowball offers that people make are ways that people are trying to, understandably sometimes, take advantage and get things for a really, really low price. But if you stand firm and you know what the value of your item is and you're not willing to let it go for much less than market value, that's how you stay in business, and that's how you stay successful, and that's how you stay profitable. Respect your time, respect your items, and stick with buyers who are going to do that too. So you will then develop a loyal customer base of people who are going to come back to you, who are going to want to make fair deals with you. So just wanted to pass that on to you, and hopefully you start using that. I know that, I don't know if Tony Boss is watching this, but I've talked somewhat about this in some other videos, and there are people who have given me feedback that by using these types of approaches that it's been very helpful for them, and they've wound up making more sales because of it. So again, don't feel that you have to make that counteroffer every time. If you feel comfortable with it and you feel like this is a situation where you can make a good deal for yourself and it's respectful of your time and it's a good deal, by all means make the counteroffer. But what I'm telling you is that if you are not comfortable with the situation and you feel like you're giving into pressure and you're nervous that if you don't accept this offer, if you don't make a counteroffer, that you're not going to make a sale, you really, really have to know your items. That's why you have to do the research. You have to know what the comps are on it. You got to know the research. You have to know what the supply and demand is on it, and try to have items up that are like that, so you don't put yourself in a situation where you don't have leverage. You always want to be in this situation where you're the one in the negotiation with the leverage. So especially when you're dealing with forums like eBay, where you have to do, or a lot of times if you set it up that way, you're dealing with situations where you're negotiating with people. So if you're going to be in a situation where you have to negotiate, then you need to be the one who has the most leverage in the situation, and you're the one setting the terms. So that's what I wanted to pass on. I hope those examples are helpful for you. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button. feel free to comment down below as well. Also, again, make sure you go check out that podcast that I told you about. I think you'll enjoy it. Come by to the Facebook group, the Facebook Reselling Resource Center, and follow me over on Instagram as well. That's at prime_time_treasure. Appreciate you watching this video, and I will see you at the next one. Thanks, everybody.